If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. We have battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Well, we are back with another personal RTT list that I'll be bringing to the Sackville Slugfest RTT on February 22nd, 2025. I'm getting back into the tournament scene. The last few months' schedule just didn't line up. I'm slowly building my back and my spine up to be able to play a GT tournament. The 2-day tournament would be pretty hard on my back, but I'm working on towards that. This time, I will be bringing a Talons of the Emperor list to the RTT. This is my Talons of the Emperor list that I will be taking to the RTT. I've named this one the Rule of Two. My Warlord is a Blade Champion with the Radiant Mantle Enhancement. I do have another Blade Champion in the list with the Gift of the Terran Artifice Enhancement. For our other datasheets, we have 2 Caladius Grav-tanks with the Arachnus Heavy Blaze Cannons, 2 units of 5 Custodian Wardens with the Guardian Spears in the Vexilla, and those will be joining into the Blade Champions. We have 2 units of 3 Vertus Praetors with the Salvo Launchers, 2 units of 4 Prosecutors, 2 units of 4 Witchseekers. For the dedicated transport, I have 1 Psychona Rhino with the Stormbolter and the Hunter Killer Missile, and for my allied unit, I did bring the Callidus Assassin. So as you can see, for the Rule of Two, a lot of these units are doubled up. So let's move on to the unit breakdown and how I'm going to use these units in this detachment for this tournament. Let's take a look at the Talons of the Emperor detachment rule and why it will be so important against those units that can put out devastating wounds. Revered Companions has 2 different parts. Psychona units from your army gain the following ability. Null Aegis, so when you have any of your Adeptus Custodes units within 6 inches of a Psychona unit, they will have a 5-up funeral pain against mortal wounds and psychic attacks. All other Adeptus Custodes units from your army, so any of my units that aren't Psychona units, when they are standing within 6 inches of a Psychona unit, that Psychona unit will get +1 to the hit roll. This isn't as important as that 5-up funeral pain to mortal wounds. Being within 6 inches of a Psychona unit will also give my Custodes units access to a Stratagem Empiric Severance for a 4-up funeral pain instead of the 5-up funeral pain. Let's start the unit breakdown with the 2 units of Blade Champions with their Wardens. These are my Anvil units to hold objectives. I could even start one of these units in reserve. The Blade Champion gives a unit reroll charges with a once per game advance in charge, while the Wardens have their once per game 4-up funeral pain and -1 to the wound roll if the incoming attack is higher than the Warden's toughness 6. Talons of the Emperor has many great rules to help the Blade Champion and Wardens unit. One of the Blade Champions has the Gift of the Terran Artifice, giving it +1 to the wound roll and melee. The other Blade Champion, our Warlord, has the Radiant Mantle Enhancement for -1 to the hit roll to incoming attacks if they're within 12 inches of this unit. I wanted to try this enhancement out since there is a lot of melee factions in the RTT. It was either this or the Aegis Projector. The detachment rule gives us a way to protect the unit from mortal wounds. Then for the stratagems, Hunt as 1 for 1 CP for a fallback, shoot, and charge is very powerful for this unit. We can re-engage for fights first or get to areas for secondary points like behind enemy lines. Emperor's Executioners for 2 CP. It is a bit expensive, but it does give you one of the better damage buffs with +1 to the wound, and this will help the fact that the Wardens do not re-roll their wound rolls, so this will help them do some extra damage. Talon Pincer for 1 CP, the best stratagem in the detachment, will be used to keep this unit out of line of sight, extend or block charges, or even to steal objectives. Finally, Shield of Honor for 1 CP can be used to protect some Psychona models from enemy shooting. The Blade Champion with Radiant Mantle will be my high danger objective. My Warlord unit will have a once per game 4-up funeral pain with -1 to hit and a possible -1 to the wound roll. This can be a very hard unit to kill in that one phase. I do not need to rush these units onto objectives. I want to use my chaff to grab the objectives. I might start one of these in reserves or have them both on the table in staging areas, ready to pounce on anything that gets near the objectives I am holding. I want to use Talon Pincer and my Psychona units to block the big dangerous charges into my Wardens. I want to be counter-charging as much as I can. I don't want to be receiving any charges. So I want to use my sisters to block off those charges or just move 6 inches away from the charging unit. Next in the list is my 2 units of 3 Vertus Praetors. The 2 units of 3 Vertus Praetors with the salvo launchers and the 2 grav tanks This list has some serious anti-tank shooting. I was considering a shield captain on Dawn Eagle, but I only own 6 spikes, so that's not enough for a captain with 2 units of 3. I wanted a few speedy units in my list, and unlike Benatari, these can do good damage in multiple phases. They can shoot with their salvo launchers, they can even bomb you in the movement phase, and they have really deadly melee. So let's take a quick look at the new improved Vertus Praetors. They have a movement of 12, toughness 7, a 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 5 wounds, 6 leadership, and OC of 2. Those salvo launchers that I have equipped in the unit are twin linked. They have a 24-inch range, 1 attack each, hitting on 2s, strength 10, AP 3, damage D6 plus 1. So these can do some serious damage into those vehicle or tank units. That twin linked really makes a difference. For the melee weapons, they have the Interceptor Lance, 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2 with the Lance ability. So when this unit charges, it will have plus 1 to the wound roll in the combat phase. Their abilities, Turbo Boost, instead of doing an advance roll, you just auto advance 6 inches. The next ability, Quicksilver Execution, is only once per battle. After this unit ends a normal or advanced move, you can select 1 unit, excluding monster or vehicles, that it had moved over during that movement. Then roll 1d6 for each model in this unit, that Vertus Praetor unit. For each 2+, the enemy suffers 2 mortal wounds. 2 units of 3 of these jet bikes can do some serious damage. The salvo launchers into toughness 10 or multi-wound mounted units are deadly. They hit on 2+ with twin linked. This actually means all of our high damage anti-tank shooting is twin linked. The salvo launchers are twin linked, and the Arachnus heavy blaze cannons on the Caladius Grav-tanks are twin linked as well. This adds a lot of reliability to our anti-tank shooting. The Lance ability for +1 to the wound roll on their melee weapons allows them to blend anything toughness 6 or under, because you'll be wounding on 2+. Then they can also punch into those toughness 8 or above targets. Instead of wounding on 5s, they'll be wounding on 4s. Then Quicksilver Execution for a potential of 6 mortal wounds for each of these units. Now for the Talons of the Emperor stratagems that really benefit this unit. The first one, Hunt as 1 for 1 CP, is fantastic for these jet bikes. It allows us to fall back, shoot, and then charge back in, or charge a whole different unit if we need to. These love being able to fall back, shoot, and charge to get that deadly +1 to the wound in the fight phase, because they do need to charge this turn to have that +1 to the wound from Lance. The salvo launchers can throw out some big damage as well. Hunt as 1 allows this unit to keep its full potential in our turn. Emperor's Executioners for 2 CP can be used if we have used Hunt as 1 on a different unit. At 2 CP though, it is expensive in a CP hungry detachment. Then we have Talon Pincer for 1 CP, and it's great for extending charges in hopes to keep them out of combat. They are toughness 7 with a 2-up save and 4-up invulnerable and a big 5 wounds. We can even use these to charge block something. That toughness 7 in melee could have the enemy unit wounding on 5s. Maybe I don't want to use my Wardens for Funeral Pain yet. I could possibly use these Vertus Praetors to charge block that unit, and since they are toughness 7 with those 5 wounds, maybe I could tank all the hits, or at least take a lot less damage than into my Wardens, as well as saving my 4 Funeral Pain for later on in the game. I want to use these in my Calladius Grav-tanks to take out any monster or vehicle units, or even multi-wound models, such as the Legion of Access Fiends. The Wardens are very hard to kill, but they do not hit as hard as other Custodes units in melee. These 2 units add some serious melee threat. With the Lance ability, they can threaten nearly any unit they will come across. I may start one of these in strategic reserves. It really depends on my opponent. Next up is our big guns, the Caladius Grav-tanks. The Caladius have such a good datasheet, it does not need much detachment support. It does have access to the strongest stratagem in the detachment though, Talon Pincer. Talons of the Emperor only has a few useful stratagem for the Caladius. Once again, Talon Pincer can be used to extend charges or even charge block, and then Empiric Severance for 1 CP can be used to give the tank a 4-up Funeral Pain to Mortals and Psychic. Empiric Severance for 1 CP can be used to give the tank a 4+ Funeral Pain to Mortals and Psychic. I am not going to use these as aggressive as my Solar Spearhead list. I want to use these as my backline screen until after turn 3, and then turn these much more aggressive. Use their threat to make moving my infantry up the board more safely. The longer these can stay on the table, the better it is for me. They are a great late game unit. When the enemy needs to expose themselves, you have something to shoot at them, and shoot at them very hard. And once again, Talon Pincer is fantastic for making those usually much needed charges into our Caladius Grav-tanks. I've had lots of games where I've used this stratagem, moved my tank 6 inches, and then that attacking unit failed its charge, and then in our turn, we turn around and blow them away with the tank. Next up is our Psychona units. We'll start with the Humble Prosecutors. We have 2 units of 4 in my list, a great cheap unit for doing secondary actions with the option to leave 1 on the home objective to hold it if there's no 6-inch deep strike or indirect threat, which will allow me to leave these on the home objective all game without worrying about them getting shot off the board or a 6-inch deep strike and getting charged or something like that. The Detachment rule to help spread some 5-up funeral pain to mortals and psychic wounds to Custodes within 6 inches, and that will be really important to this list. It did take a lot of Sisters units to make sure my big tough Custodes units were within 6 inches of at least one of these Psychona units. Talon Pincer for 1 CP, that reactive 6-inch move, is great for extending those charges on enemy units trying to take our home objective. I'm going to use 1 to hold my home objective while the other deploys close to the deployment line in case I draw containment or another secondary action I can do outside my deployment. Even more so, against any list that has mortal wounds, the 5 Psychona units in the list will help me stay within 6 inches of at least one of them, to have that 5-up funeral pain to mortals, and the access to Empiric Severance to upgrade that 5-up funeral pain to a 4-up funeral pain. And this could really matter against the Legion of Excess. If I don't want to pop my Wardens 4-up funeral pain against some fiends, I could use this stratagem instead, save against the wounds that didn't make it through, and then hopefully 4-up funeral pain a bunch of those mortals away. Then we have my favorite Psychona unit, 2 units of 4 Witchseekers. 1 unit will start in the Rhino to scout towards an objective or screen if we need to. Shield of Honor for 1 CP can be used on the Wardens to keep this unit safe from the enemy ranged attacks. Talon Pincer and Empiric Severance, the more powerful stratagems, will be saved for those more powerful, points expensive units. But a lot of these stratagems, if you are within 6 inches of a Psychona unit, you can actually select a Custodes unit and a Psychona unit. Then both of those units will get the benefit of the stratagem. If we have these Witchseekers within 6 inches of some of these Vertus Praetors, we can use that 6-inch reactive move on both of these units. That is something to keep in mind for this list. The last of our Psychona units is the Psychona Rhino. The Rhino adds a medium toughness vehicle to keep a unit of Witchseekers safe. A unit of Witchseekers will start inside our Rhino to give it a 6-inch scout. The Rhino does have the Psychona keyword to allow it to spread that Null Aegis aura for that 5-up funeral pain, and also give access to Empiric Severance for that 4-up funeral pain, as long as this Rhino is within 6 inches of a Custodes unit. The strength of this unit is being a Psychona model, and with this Rhino being a pretty decent sized model, you can actually spread that 6-inch aura around a pretty big area with a Rhino. The last unit in the list is our allied unit, the Callidus Assassin. I love this unit in a Custodes list. Not so much if she's standing in the ruin somewhere, only for me to forget to do her uppy downy, so that is really important in this tournament, to make sure I always uppy down her when I need to, and not forget she's just standing in a corner somewhere, doing nothing. She is one of the best lone ops for scoring we have access to, if not the best unit. Her 12-inch aura to add 1 CP to the cost of enemy stratagems can really hurt your opponent. The opponent may have a fights first or a fight on death stratagem, but they only have 1 CP left. Drop her within 12 inches of the unit to make it cost 2 CP instead of 1, and I plan on taking full advantage of this, especially with some of those CP hungry detachments. If you can drop her within the right place, it can really mess up my opponent's plan. I don't want to get her killed early, because she is really important to my game plan of fighting some of these top meta units. And that's the unit breakdown. Let's move on to a quick game plan for the list. Next up is a game plan for the Talons of the Emperor list. I did not build this list for any specific opponent, but I did build it to play against the top dogs in this current meta. After the last RTT, I wanted a better way to deal with demons or melee pressure. The Rule of 2 list has tools to deal with shooting heavy list, 2 Warden units to hold objectives, and then some strong anti-tank shooting of my own to keep the shooting army out of all the shooting lanes and force them to come take the objectives or lose on points. For World Eaters and other melee pressure lists, they will have a hard time dealing with all the move and charge block potential in the list. I just need to catch these big hard-hitting units in my turn, try my best not to be the one who is charged by those big Death Star melee units. For demons, the Detachment rule for 5+2 mortals and the Talon Pincer for that reactive move should allow me some options to deal with these fiends. The anti-tank will be used to focus and take out the fiends before the keepers. I may even want to focus on killing for the first few turns, instead of my usual turn 1, turn 2 setup for scoring. Break the demons back, and then score to win in the late game. My Callidus Assassin will be key here. Drop her within 12 inches of the fiends to hopefully make that turn damage to mortal wound stratagem too expensive, and then light them up in the shooting phase and the fight phase. Otherwise, against some of the other armies, it's grab objectives early for max primary, while scoring the most secondary where I can, and then use the Vertus Praetors to deny enemy points. Let's finish the video with some final thoughts. Let's see if I do better with the Talons of the Emperor, but with this list I know much better than my Spearhead list. My Spearhead list may need to drop the second Caladius to get myself that second Telemon, but for now, I think this Talons of the Emperor list is quite strong. I'm looking forward to the RTT, and I'll make sure I get more pictures this time and make a better follow-up video after the tournament. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, and other Warhammer 40K content. Thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.